you, Cindy?
I'm just doing great today. Is my boy here?
He certainly is. He's like, little kissy
Uh,
mummy.
Hi, Adam. Love you. I
He
am
says, hi,
so.
Mum. I love you too.
I miss you too. And I am so excited about our visit today with Anne Frank. Hello, Anne, and thank you so much for coming.
He says you're welcome. He says she's very excited. She's ready to go. I can see a visual image of her for some reason. Let's see how she fits in with how I work. I've got this beautiful black and white picture of her in my head right now. And her book as well is there. She's holding a pen and her little diary. So she's giving me the full picture. And she said, "Thank you, madam, for inviting her in. She's very excited to do a posthumous interview." She when she wrote those diaries, she said, "I never expected to be so famous."
I know you didn't. I just read it. I swear, I almost felt like we were two 14-year-old girls. I'm going to be honest, I was afraid to read the book because, I know the whole story. I didn't really think about the fact, that it was just the piece behind, the bookcase when you were in hiding. And I have to say that I am so very impressed with your spirit of optimism, how you always found something to be happy about. You were so courageous and you were so precocious as a child, and how lucky for us that you were so on fire to be a writer.
She said that was her hopes and dreams were in that genre of work, of creating. She didn't understand at that time that her life was going to be so short,
Right.
and that her greatest work was a description of her life hidden away. She didn't understand the gravity, the size of it when
Right.
she said that what her expressions did really gave a point of view of the war that nobody could have imagined was going to come out of it.
Right.
And there's a lot of emotion from this young lady. I'm going to struggle not to cry. I am getting tears already. It's gratitude. She's got an overwhelming gratitude and love and appreciation for how she's been treated in the community. From that tiny little egg that she laid. She says that it just blossomed into something so amazing, and she only wishes, her only wish, if she had a wish, would be that she could have continued her life and drawn on that other experience that she had in the prison. That would have been something she would have loved to have done as well, being able to fully explore that. But she said maybe if she had done that, it would have taken away from the diaries in themselves. She doesn't know, but that's her only wish, is that she would have been able to talk about that time in her life that was in that. But perhaps she said it might have been too painful for people. Perhaps one of the things that people enjoy about those diaries in that hidden place, those words in that hidden place, is that she was so upbeat and she was so positive and she was so, her thoughts were always from a point of wonder and exploration. Although she said that anytime she said they could hear things in the house, they could hear things, they could hear people moving around, they could hear if the Germans were in the area. She said that feeling of trepidation would creep around, and they would just kind of sit, and they knew they just had to sit in solitude within the solitude, right? Every footstep counted.
Right.
Every single footstep counted. Every noise counted. Every breath counted. There seems to have been numerous occasions where the Nazis came into their house, and yeah, and for them, that those moments were like time stood still.
Oh, no
Like,
kidding.
yeah, they were frozen in time, and
Right.
it might have only been minutes that they came through, but it felt like an eternity,
Yeah.
from within that little space. She also says that the time with her father and her mother and her sister. Uh, I don't know if there's anybody else in there. I just gives me the four, but um, I feel like it was the most precious family experience you could ever have. I'm sorry, she's really emotional.
Aw.
Whew. Um, in particular, she's talking about her father. Her father really suffered emotionally after.
Yes.
Sorry, God, this is a tough one.
I'm going to give you props for your courage, Allison. I know this story,
Mm,
and I know how he had to have suffered.
yeah. Um, Sorry. He I think he died around, was it 1980 or something like that?
He lived a
He
very
died.
long time
Yeah, he lived a long
afterward.
time. Yeah. She said he lived his whole life in a combination of pain and reverence. Right. So it was
Wow.
emotional pain, and the
Yeah.
reverence was about how long that he had his family there. That precious time that he did have with them was met with uh, disappointment and misery that he didn't get to see them one more time. He didn't get to say goodbye. He didn't get to kiss and cuddle uh, his little girls. Sorry. I'm going to need a tissue. This is why we need nose blowing music. Like, I
Oh,
know I've got some somewhere. Oh, dearie me. Sorry. She is just very emotional. I shouldn't have worn makeup today.
that's one of the things I love about Anne. She was just so vivacious.
Mm.
She lived life,
Yeah.
even if it was behind a bookcase.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Um, she said, don't feel sorry, not you in particular, but the world in general, don't feel sorry for her. A lot of people felt sorry for them, because they had this 2 years or whatever it was behind bars. What that's people see it as a
Yeah,
prison,
right.
and it really wasn't a prison. It only became a prison when the Nazis were in the vicinity. That's when the prison really felt like that's when it was closed in. She kind of gives me that it became a very claustrophobic experience at
Hmm.
that point. Um, but she also realized that they were just doing the job, right? That was it. They were just doing their job, and their job was coming from a place that from a lack of understanding.
Right.
Right, the Nazis were coming from a lack of understanding. They were coming from a place of a lot of it was fear, a lot of fear. The community, most of the community, did what they did out of fear because if they hadn't, then they would have died. They would have died at the hands of the people above them who were also working from a fear base. So
Right.
she gives me that she really understood that. She understood them. She had the emotional maturity to understand that
She did.
not they were not spiritually developed enough to understand what they were doing.
Right.
They were fully immersed in a 3D environment, a third dimensional environment, which was quite dense and low. She said Hitler brought some very dark energies with him.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, she said, what people don't understand about Hitler is that he sacrificed a lot of light to come in to play that role, right? Because she said all roles are known. They're all known, right? So he had to sacrifice a great deal in order to play that role, in order to be that person. The planet needed a shake-up. The planet needed a shake-up. It needed to understand itself. And
Right.
that was Hitler's job, to make people understand themselves. Like, understand who you are. Understand you are a spiritual being in a human body. You don't need to be bad to other people to feel good. You just need to feel good. You need to come here and feel good and have an experience that is joyful, no matter what is going on around you. You can always find joy in it. Well, unfortunately, Hitler, we see him as a monster. We see him as a monster, but he made such great changes to the world. He made great changes to civilization's views on being incarcerated, on being a certain religion, on being this or being that. He really brought those, she calls them dummies to a head. He brought those dummies to, I don't know what she means by the word dummy. Hang on. It's like she says it is a misnomer, right? Mm-hmm. Calling all these negative things that we experience, mm-hmm. Slavery and atrocities, what have you, they are misnomers. They're not real, right? So he encapsulated those and brought them to a head and showed people that these things don't serve us, right?
He absolutely did.
Your picture's frozen.
Oh, I just noticed. I look very stern here. Oh, good. I can pick my nose and you can't see. And I cannot believe what a spiritually evolved perspective you just shared. And even when she was here, she was really expansive in that way.
Mm. Yeah. She was blessed with it. She keeps taking me back to her father. She said her father was such a good teacher. He taught her to forgive and to love no matter what. Right? This relation, every time she takes me back to her father, I get so emotional.
Well, Allison, she was a daddy's girl. She absolutely loved and adored her father. He was the person she was closest to in the whole world, so it absolutely makes sense to me.
Right. Okay. That would explain why then. But yeah. So he was her teacher. He was the one that taught her that no matter what a person does, that they're doing it from a place of, more often than not, when it's hurtful, they're doing it from a place of lack. Right. A lack of knowledge, a lack of knowing, mm-hmm. A lack of appreciation for themselves, a lack of love for themselves. Uh-huh. And so she understood, going back to the Nazis coming through, she understood that, well, that's what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And to the best of our ability, we're going to hide from that. We're going to create our own. She said for a while it felt like it actually created a dimension that didn't exist in that current time and space, That
makes sense.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Absolutely it does. Her father had a wonderful sense of humor. I think, I wonder if maybe she got that from him, but she did. Anne had an amazing sense of humor. She was able to see humor in just about everything, and she was able to keep the other people's spirits up because she was such a jokester. And she had such a vivid imagination and a spirit for adventure. And that remained intact even when she was in captivity. And some of there were other people with her mom and dad and sister. There was a family by the name of the Von Dams. There was a husband and wife, and then their son Peter, who was probably around Margot's age, but he was closer friends with Anne. And then there was a gentleman named Mr. Dussel. Now these may not be their real names, who was a dentist who lived with them as well. But it is remarkable how well those 8 people got along, considering.
I'm trying to picture the space that they were in, and now
Right.
you've because I didn't know it's that long ago since I've read the story. I couldn't remember who else was there. I only got a picture of the four of them. There's eight of them. This tiny. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. So here's the funny thing. So, Anne, I have to tell you, you have such a way with words. I laughed out loud when I read your comment about the next person, in line to use the bathroom after you. I mean, she says, the next in line invariably calls me back to remove the gracefully curved but unsightly hairs that I've left in the sink. I mean, this doesn't sound like something that's going to come out of a 14-year-old girl. And then, now you have to picture this. She shared a room with Mr. Dussel, right?
Yeah.
She says, approximately 3 o'clock, I have to get up to use the tin can under my bed. I always hold my breath as I go, since it clatters into the can like a brook down a mountainside. And then she says, who else but me is ever going to read these letters?
Well, yeah, I'm glad she was so honest. Maybe if you restart your video, you might unfreeze.
Oh, you know what? I have been frozen a few times during these videos, and I can tell you from experience that my face will spontaneously unfreeze when you least expect it. It'll happen. So,
Right.
you know.
Okay.
Anyway, so if it doesn't bother you too much, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just have to tell you, Anne, you are such an entertaining writer. It makes me wonder whether you have had other incarnations as a writer or storyteller of some sort.
Right. Let's have a look. See what she says. Um. Yeah. She shows me. She shows me a picture of a lady with a lamp. Um, I don't know the name of this author or anything like that, but I get that there's been she says several lives where she's been a writer. Um, she said that she was actually around at the time of Shakespeare. She was in the company of Shakespeare, and
Oh.
there was a great deal. She knew him quite well. I said, "Were you male or female?" She said female. She what? Right. When I say in the company, I mean in the circle of his circle of friends.
Sure.
Yeah. Um, she said because they really didn't want females at that time to be on the stage, but she learned a great deal from him just being in his company as a friend. He was such an amazing lyricist. He could just rattle things off. You could be sitting talking to him, and he just had this most amazing way with words. And of course he hung out with other writers as well. Some of the stuff that he wrote is now being debated that it belongs to another author, someone that left England. She said, but they all worked together. They would all alliterate together.
Mm-hmm.
They would sit around together and explore ideas. So what belongs to one author belongs to another because they were all working. They were always working together. There were always discussions. So she said, but yeah, he was just such an amazing lyricist just to sit with. She said she shows me sitting in awe like this, listening to him tell stories, and that was one of her early experiences, being around writing, creative writing in particular. There are several more. She takes me back much further, and she gives me a life as a bard, what she calls a bard, where she said we used to follow people around who had money. Right, wealthy people and who wanted their stories written down. They wanted to be entertained. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that we're going back to like the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, whatever. And she learned a lot like that. It was a lot of because that was off the cuff moments that you had to be. You had to just stop and entertain. You stop what you're doing and entertain the person that you were working for,
Mm-hmm.
right? So several lives as a writer and entertainer. She has been an actor and an actress. She's done that. She's
Anyone we might
also
know?
um, there's no big ones. She's
Okay.
talking about like a vaudeville
Oh,
type
sure.
atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
Um, and vaudeville going back. She's also been somebody who is connected to animals. She loves the veterinarian, helping
Mm-hmm.
animals. She said she's had many roles, but she gravitates towards roles that are entertaining and teaching and helpful,
Mm-hmm.
right? She doesn't want to put herself she says some people will want to choose dark roles like Hitler, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to choose dark roles like that. I found that I could better communicate the other side of that to people rather than go and experience directly the darkness by being the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It was better for me to. She said she said I interview them. I kind of do a lot of what you and I are doing right now. She said I'll interview them on the other side once they've had that experience. I'll just sit and talk to them and find out what it was like and what they experienced. So I don't actually need to do it personally. I can just gain that experience from them.
That's amazing because, I was going to ask you if you had done that with Hitler, but I can tell from what you have already volunteered that if you didn't do that, you have gained what he brought. And you already shared,
Yeah, and
his having to give up some light and the good that came from the darkness.
yeah, absolutely. She said he's not the only one that's created, we tend to focus on Hitler in particular because he's the one that's kind of the biggest one in our awareness. But there've
Yeah.
been others, and
Uh-huh.
historically there've been. She said there've been hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
Hitlers throughout the ages.
There have, yes.
The pharaohs. She said the pharaohs were quite brutal. A lot of them were quite brutal, and she said I've sat with many of those and discussed why they did what they did, what their choices were all about. And she said one of my favorites. She said is Vlad the Impaler. He's absolutely
Really?
yeah.
Do tell.
um, so she said I really enjoyed having those experiences, not verbatim, but from them,
Mm-hmm.
right? From them. So yeah.
Well, you had a naturally sunny disposition. Was that something that you came in with to prepare you for the challenges that you would face as Anne Frank?
She said my vibration in general is a natural sunny
Mm-hmm.
disposition. Like I said, I don't gravitate towards the darker roles. I always gravitate towards the roles that will help in
Mm-hmm.
some way, that will be uplifting. Um, sorry, I've forgotten your question. Did I?
Oh,
Did she
I
answer
was
it?
just remarking that she had a sunny disposition and was
All right.
wondering
Yeah.
whether, she came in with it to prepare her for the challenges that she would face as Anne. But it sounds like that's just a natural part of her soul that she does
Yeah.
tend to
Yeah.
be.
It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
That's exactly what she's saying. Yeah.
well. Diary of a
Absolutely.
Young Girl has become one of the world's greatest lessons in compassion. It's been read by school children and their parents and other people and families all over the world. Thank you so very much for recording that time of your life in captivity. From your higher perspective, can you share with us the impact that you are aware of that your book has made?
Um. She said that it's not easy to define in words, but she says it puts her in the category of a light worker,
Mm-hmm.
a light worker from the 1900s, right? Like we have light workers now which are doing all the work.
Sure.
That was, she said, had she been alive today, she would have a blog,
Mm-hmm.
and she would be talking about these things in a blog. She would be talking about how sorry, there's some. Can you hear that?
No, but I'm telling you what, I got goosebumps from my head to my toes when she said she would be blogging.
Right. Sorry, there's a really big noise that just pulled me out of the channel.
Really? Wow. I
Um,
didn't hear it. I'll be interested
you
to
can't hear it.
listen.
Good. Okay, you can't hear it. That's all right then. Um, Right. So she would be a blogger. She said, I would be a blogger today, and I will be talking about the importance of understanding where other people are coming from on their soul journey. And when you do that, when you don't take it personally, because that's what more often than not the problem is, that people take what other people are doing as a personal affront to them. Well, it's not.
Right.
Everybody who does anything is it's coming from within. It's coming from their place of understanding about who they are as a spiritual being. It's not coming from your place of as a spiritual being. It's coming from theirs. So if you retaliate, which war is basically a retaliation, right? When
Yes.
war is somebody slapping you in the face and you taking it personally and retaliating. That's what war is. And everybody has their own battles, and if only they could just stop for a minute and say, well, okay, that's where they are coming from. I don't have to go down to that level. I don't have to be a part of that battle. That's their battle. I can still rise above it and live my own life and still be happy. And she said if more people did that, that's what her blog would be about. That more people loving on each other.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go back a little bit to the relationship with your father. I can't help but wonder if Otto Frank was kind of a soulmate of yours. Have you two been around a few times together?
She said yes, it definitely is a soulmate of hers. They often incarnate together. She said that she does actually have an incarnation now, but when she said if she was alive today, she was talking about as Anne Frank, of course. Anne Frank can't be alive today because she was alive then, right? So, but yeah, they often do incarnate together. He likes natural history, historically. He loves understanding the world from a historical perspective. That's his thing. He is, of course, incarnated today as well. So,
That's interesting. So you both are incarnated. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing today? Each of you? Do you
She
mind?
said that she is currently. She has some. She doesn't want to give too much away because she said this person's already in the public. This person has already declared themselves that she is the incarnation or a reincarnation of Anne Frank. So she doesn't want to give too much away because that will kind of interfere with that person's life path, if you know what I mean.
Oh, we don't want that to happen. But
Yeah.
are you saying that the person is aware that she shares a higher self with Anne?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, only tell us what you'd like to share.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that she's told you all she wants.
Okay, no worries. Okay,
Yeah.
so listen, it's interesting how you were so infatuated with your father's love life before he met your mom. I guess he had told you about, an earlier romance, and as a young girl, she would fantasize about that, and to entertain herself, she actually, developed it into a full-blown story that she wrote out by hand, and she actually bound it and sewed a binding as a gift.
Oh,
And I think
that
that's
is
just the
beautiful.
absolutely sweetest thing ever.
Yeah. I can see a picture. We're going into pictures. I can see pictures of her father. She says that she romanticized everything.
She did.
Everything was a fairy tale to her, right? There was wonder in everything, and because of their limited that limited connections with the outside world, that was meant that she went inwards. I mean, she was already creative, but she had to go inwards and develop. She said it's like developing a movie script. It was the same type of thing. You have to go inwards. You have to create the world that you want to live in. And so when we were in that space, I mean, she said I was creating the world I wanted to live in regardless, but while we were in that space, there was nothing else but creating the world I wanted to live in. So,
well, she had a natural talent for doing that, for creating segues, going from one part of a story to another. She was just a brilliant writer, and I was really happy to learn that Otto later remarried a woman who also survived the concentration camps, who also lost her family.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I get a little tingle in my tummy when you talk about him getting remarried.
Oh, a little jealousy?
I don't know. I kind of probably is it jealousy? Let me see if it's jealousy. It was a missed opportunity, right? It was one of those. She said, "You really don't have regrets once you cross over. You really can't have regrets. You can have inklings of things that you think, oh, what if? And she would have liked that her family, her mother and her sister, that they." If they'd have continued as a family, there's still the angst there. She says, "I don't mourn over that. I don't grieve over it. But you still think it. You still think these things. You think it would have been nice if we could have stayed together as a family. But also, I'm very happy that he found some happiness within, because he did live such a long life. I mean, I would not want him to be alone." But yeah, you definitely got a bit of a reaction there.
That is interesting. And your relationship with your mother, it was not unlike that of many teenage girls and their mothers. And I applaud your father for leaving, some of that stuff in. I mean, some of it was originally not included in the book, and the version that I read was more forthcoming. And I thought, I want to applaud you for sharing that piece. It's very clear that you loved your mother very much, and that it was even though you were in captivity, it was very much a typical mother-daughter relationship.
That's exactly what she's giving me. She said the craziness of it was that her mother couldn't lose her in any way because she was incarcerated. They were all incarcerated. Right. She saw her day in, day out, night, day, always there. She was always... But the protection persona of the mother never ends. And when you are living in a fear-based reality, which she said her mother was, her mother cried a lot. She showed me wiping tears because it was such a dreadful environment for her. She, as a mother, wanted only the best for me, for the family. She wanted freedoms. My mother grieved for the freedoms that we weren't allowed to have, but at the same time, if we'd have had those freedoms, she would have been very much the mother that would have been, you can't go out, you can't do this, you can't do that. So, yes, that's right.
That is very interesting. As difficult as it was living in hiding, the most difficult part of your life was yet to come.
Yes.
What would you like to share about that? I'm not going to ask you any specifics because I don't know what you're comfortable sharing. What would you like to share with us about what happened after that day in August 1944 when you were arrested?
She says that it was that she did grapple with fear, a lot of fear then. Her whole energy changes when we start getting into, was it Auschwitz? Auschwitz pops into my head, and some other name which I can't pronounce. She said once, okay, I'm trying to get the energy right because she's giving me comparisons because she was incarcerated through their own free will in the house, and now they were incarcerated not through their own free will.
Right.
But she said this is kind of semantic terms we're using because we agreed to be involved with this no matter what happened to us, we agreed to it. So it's all kind of free will. She
Okay.
said that one way or another, the Nazis tried to take away their freedoms, right? But you cannot take away the freedom of thought. Nobody can
Right.
take away your freedom in your head. Only you can do that, right? So
Right.
being in that environment, she said, I had two choices. I could let them steal my freedom away from me because I was physically no longer able to control coming and going, the natural freedoms that we get as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could say, well, this is the life that I chose, and I'm going to do everything I can to make the best of it. And so she said, and there were beatings. There were beatings. We were often left naked and beaten, even as children. There was no love. It was cruelty personified. There was nothing else but that. But there was love with each other. We had each other. We made friends. We latched on to other people who were experiencing the same things, and we became friends. And they became our family. That was my
Sure.
family. And I think there's a woman that she was very close to, I feel like, who kind of took care of her. She said the Nazis had a habit of separating families. When you separate a family, you take away the camaraderie, you take away the strength. And so we formed new families, we formed new bonds together. Um, It's not an experience that she wants to particularly talk about in detail.
Okay.
Uh,
Absolutely
the
respect that.
food was terrible
Right.
when there even was food. There were days where they didn't even get fed, um, and disease was abominable diseases, like things that just cleanliness take away. Right? We don't even know. You know, do you know what fungal problems there are for the feet, for example, when you
Oh
can't wash,
gosh.
right? They are just, people get these little fungal things on their nails. No, but in that environment, a fungal disorder in the feet could eat your whole leg.
Yeah.
These are the disgusting environment that we were living in. There was no cleanliness, and the very idea of cleanliness, it was not uncommon for people to be taken away, and they didn't come back. They just supposedly went for a cleanup, and then you never saw them again. And so you knew that cleanliness could actually lead to ending your life. And for some, that was actually a blessing. They were like, well, bring it on. I don't want to live like this. I would rather be dead, so take me for that horrible shower. Um, uh, I don't know if she can go any further. It kind of went really dead then, like she was in mourning for all the people that
Sure. Sure.
died. Um, she wasn't incarcerated for very long, was she? In that, it doesn't
No,
look like it
no.
from the timeline in my head.
It's my
Yeah.
understanding. Well, first of all, I think from what I read that Margot was with you, your sister, and
A
that
sister, yeah.
it's my understanding that the two of you both died of typhus. I think in December that same year in
Yeah.
1944.
She said that there was like a massive outbreak,
Hmm.
uh, typhoid, uh, clammy. I get clammy skin. I get pustula, like
Oh
yellow
gosh.
yellow skin and pus and um. It sounds like a really nasty disease, actually. I don't know much about it, but I get a very yellow skin. I feel like my kidneys are under extreme stress, like their pain. My throat hurts. I get burning in my throat. The chest, the weight. I feel like the weight of, like her bones. Right, she's bony. Her bones were sticking out. There's no meat on them because, like she said, they didn't always get fed, and even when they did, it was disgusting. So the disease was it was a blessing and a curse. It was not a nice experience, but she understood that was her time. She knew she wasn't going to survive. Yeah.
Well, I am really, really sorry that you had to experience all that, but I'm also very, very grateful that you made sure that it was alchemized into its very highest form by sharing what you experienced and by sharing, the greater soul lesson of this whole horrible World War II. And I want to thank you for that. Is there any last words you would like to share with us?
Right. She said, no matter what you think your prison is, and a lot of people do think that they are in prison. They think that their lives are imprisoning them. She said, that is a fallacy. Nobody, no matter what your circumstances, you're not in a prison. Only in your head can you be imprisoned. Your thoughts should set you free. No matter what your circumstances, your thoughts should set you free. Try not to think about yourself as a victim of circumstances, because you're not a victim of circumstances. You are a sovereign being who's made choices that have not served you, possibly. And so you also have the right to change those choices to things that do serve you. And so that would be my only gift, passing words, would be make choices that serve you rather than making choices that don't serve you. And you're not in prison. No matter what you think is going on, you are free to do whatever you want to do in the life you've chosen.
I love it. We can always make a different choice.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
I thank you so much for this today.
Yeah, that was wonderful. That was a really lovely challenge. She's just a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Isn't she? So, Adam, what do you think of Anne?
He said he loves her and he's going to marry her.
He's going to marry her. I love it. So are you coming back down here to hook up with Anne on a future timeline?
Yeah, she's just an amazing soul. He said she plays it down how amazing she is, really. He says she's a very advanced spiritual being. She's come a long, long way in all her lives to be here to share who she is, to share her light on the world. So he said he's very grateful that he's had the opportunity to meet her. So he's got a lot of love for her. I can feel it.
I do too. I mean, I just really feel like I've been hanging out with her for, these last few weeks while I've been enjoying the book. And it's been a beautiful experience.
You probably have. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Beautiful. Okay, so we'll tell our audience goodbye. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click that little like button, like us, share it with a friend, and please subscribe so that you don't miss our next upcoming videos. And please check out Allison's website, www.theascendingpath.com.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.